Bryce at Forest Hill. I'm Matt, and this is Luke chapter 14, verse 25.
Until?
Until 33.
Okay.
Or through 33.
The cost of being a disciple. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he's able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, he will send a delegation while the other's still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple."
Okay, so this is one of the hard sayings, right? I think I mentioned this last time, but Jesus, Luke has a different word here than Matthew does. Matthew's version of it is more like prefer, prefer me to your family, basically. But Luke's just says hate.
Hate.
Like it is just hate. So whenever you've heard the words like misanthrope, or misogynist, or I'm thinking of other words. Those are all words that stem comes from this Greek word. So a misanthrope is someone who hates humanity. Misogynist hates women, right? So that's a it is hate. I mean, that's the word he uses.
Okay. I can't hate my family.
Yeah.
Now what?
Right. So what does he not mean? I mean, what can't he mean?
Well, he can't mean.
It can't mean for you to turn your back on your family unless they are in direct opposition to God.
To what Jesus says.
Yeah. So it can't mean like that you shouldn't honor your father and mother.
Yeah. Right.
That would be. He's using.
Hate is a pretty strong word.
Yeah, he's using hyperbolic language. Like there's no way out of that, and I'm not trying to like downplay the difficulty of it, but he is using. Like there's no way around that.
Right.
That he is speaking hyperbolically, but he does say hate.
Mm-hmm. Could it be like he's basically saying hate your family in order to say anyone who doesn't think, how do I want to put it? Like think
put me first.
Put me first over your family. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not hate your family.
But that's great, but that isn't what he said. He said hate.
I know.
Yeah,
well, that's the word that he's saying. That's the word Luke uses. And now you said in
Matthew, it's more like prefer.
Yeah. Okay. And
prefer me to them.
So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking he means.
Yeah.
Prefer me over his family.
Could this be because
hate.
Luke is writing to Gentiles, and the family is more than likely not going to be Christian?
Well, that's going to be true whether they're Gentiles or Jews. It should be true in both cases.
Okay.
I think Matthew softens it. Well, it's a question who is softening, or it could be that Matthew has it the way Jesus said it, and Luke sharpens it. But I think it's probably more that Matthew softens it.
When you say prefer, it seems like you have a choice.
Yeah. Well, you have a choice with hate. Oh well. So you're saying hate implies like.
I kind of see where Portia, like, it's so important that Jesus come first in your life.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm taking it. I was going to say, hey, but prefer seems like, no, you need to prefer Jesus. And it's like you say, so kind of soft, like.
I think that is what he means.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Luke, I think this is, remember, Jesus is probably speaking not in Greek. Okay, so then they have to translate, he's speaking in Aramaic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both of them have to find some way to translate it into Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons they make different choices, because they have to interpret what Jesus says even to make the translation. Right?
Okay.
So I don't know the Aramaic word that he would have used, but the reason why Matthew, I think, probably softens it, because generally where you have a divergence, the harder reading is probably closer to what was actually said, and the one that's easier to accept has probably been gone through a little PR treatment. Okay, it's not a big change, but Matthew is probably more sensitive to the concern about the honor your father and mother thing. So, but Luke leaves it, and he leaves it sharp. There is a kind of a tradition in the ancient world of talking about preference in this way, where you're committed to something so that you despise your own body, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's even typical in like kind of philosophical literature. So if you read, for example, the Platonic dialogue, the Critias, where Plato is about to get executed for corrupting the youth, teaching them to ask questions. Yeah, that's what it was. He said, why don't you, next time somebody uses a word and you don't know what they mean by it, like justice, ask them what they mean and see what happens. So then they said, can't have this guy running around, we need to kill him. So they did, but yeah, right. So, but before that happened, he gives this dialogue and he talks about, it's fine, Socrates isn't going to die, Socrates will live forever. I'll live with the gods, and my thoughts and words will live on in those who love truth and that sort of thing. He's like, I hate my own body anyway. I'm very ugly, and which apparently he was. He was very unattractive, and I have all these health, issues, and so I would rather just be dead. I despise my own body, that sort of thing. Jesus is not saying exactly that, but he's speaking in that kind of vein. Socrates might have actually just hated his body, but but Jesus is kind of speaking hyperbolically about saying, you need to be able to leave these things behind if it comes to that. That's what he's saying. So if your child or your parent or your brother or your sister say, we will break with you if you follow Christ,
then you have to break.
That's on them. Yeah. To them, that will feel like hate.
Right.
Even though the rest of Jesus' teachings make it clear that you're not supposed to actually hate them. Right? And he applies it to your own body too, right? If you're facing martyrdom, right? You prefer me to your own life. Fidelity to the gospel over your own continued existence. Like Stephen, like Paul, like Jesus, right? So it's not, you're not literally hating your body, right? You're not literally sort of like running into a brick wall because you dislike it so much, right?
No, it's a.
But you're willing to let it go.
You're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the hate language is helpful in seeing what a radical demand this is, which the preferential language makes it a little bit harder to see. Because the preferential language makes it seem like, well, maybe I just need to figure out how to align these priorities in a particular way so that Jesus gets like 30% of my time, and then other people get like 20 and 20 over here and 20. That Jesus is asking for a little bit more than that. Um, so it's and then that's what everything else follows from that, right? So he's like, that's the cost. It happens to be everything, right? Okay, hold on. Hello, Smiths.
Our computer we were late, but not this late. Our computer just would not do anything. I
Oh,
kept
You
so
need to
many,
feed your
so
gerbils.
many, like 15 minutes of trying to get on. But oh well.
I thought about kicking it.
oh, I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't like to interrupt in the middle, but anyway, eventually got on.
I still remember where we are, so it's okay.
Yeah, Luke 14:25.
That's
Yes,
you're
very
right.
good.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You could have interrupted me then, and that would have reminded me where we were. Okay, so he's saying, but that's the cost, right? You have to be able to throw everything out, if it comes to it. He's not saying throw everything out right now, but if it comes to it, right?
You can see this in real time with the videos that Kip has mentioned, the One for Israel videos. These are Jews who have become Christian, and they tell how it happened, and they tell the consequences of sharing that with their family. Sometimes the family says, you're dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go on YouTube and put in One for Israel.
And you know, they do it. They become Christians. And anyway, it doesn't stop them.
It's testimonials, which are just breathtaking.
This one guy, Michael Rydelnik, he said his father disowned him.
Yeah.
Disowned him.
Yeah.
And in fact, he divorced his wife, his mother, because she became a Christian.
Now, there are some stories where the family gets on board, but there are more stories where they disown them.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's what God's saying.
Yeah.
But
do it.
Yeah. So for Jesus, like, family is as a relative value, not an absolute value.
Yeah. Well, even Jesus himself saying, at that one point he's saying, well, who is my mother?
Who's my father?
My father.
Who's my brothers and sisters?
My brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think I remember when I was in a class, and when I was in PhD work, and this guy was. This is kind of a thing in some Catholic theology where there's a sort of like valorization of the family as like a perfect like thing that doesn't cause anybody problems and only brings like
that's a
joy and perfection and everything.
That's a big old lie.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean that's one of the things. It was like a family is like a little church, and the dad is like the priest, and the mom is. Anyway, he's going through that, and it was not a good presentation. But I said I'm not sure that like that's not. I don't know. There's like no family in the Bible that looks like that. They're all like pretty dysfunctional. Like it's hard to think of a single like functional family in the Bible. Yeah, and the one that you would have is not in. It's like doesn't get a lot of screen time, So and then there are these kind of hard sayings about family. Jesus, it's not as important as I am. It's more important that we construct a family in the church around me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's really important. That's the thing I kind of pressed him on. Like it seems like that's kind of more where the Bible is pushing our view of family. This kind of expansion, this opening up of the family into the church, or the family of the church out into other families.
The family of God.
And Jesus is trying to explain to people how important he is and how important his work is.
Yeah.
It's really serious.
Yeah.
More important than your mom, your dad.
Yeah, that's a tough thing in a culture like this. That's a very, very. This would be one of the most challenging things that he said, and I think too it's a culture in which you don't have there's not money on hand, in case you get thrown out. Like you just have your connections, like you just have those social connections for most people. So you don't have wealth to fall back on. There's no retirement fund. There's nothing like that. So if you get sick or hurt, and you no longer have family, like you're really in trouble. Like you end up, you're a beggar, or you just die, right? So it's a huge thing for him to ask. Something that's hard for us, I think, to comprehend. But it's a huge thing.
I guess, I don't know, I guess because my, just like when Joe asked for my hand in marriage, he made it a point because, you know, my church family was so important to me. I mean, who I talked to him about was not blood family. I had lots of cousins and stuff around Detroit. I never saw them, hadn't seen them in years, or even talked to them. The family that I talked about always was my church family. Those are the people he got to meet and got to know, and that, you know, in getting to know me, these are the people that are important to me. Even to the point where when we decided to get married, I told him, I said, we have to do it, at my church in Detroit, because you're taking me away from my family. And so it's important that what we do, we get married and we celebrate with that family. And when he went up that Sunday when he wanted to propose, and he said to the church, you all know that Portia her parents are gone and that, but she always talks about her family. You are her family. And so I want to know, family, is it okay if I marry Portia? And that was it for me. That was the greatest thing.
That's a
Ding, ding,
that's a
ding, you
lovely
win.
gesture.
Which hand did he ask for?
Left.
Oh.
And that was just very important for me. And as long as he said, yeah, we can get married here in Detroit, that's fine.
We were
Okay.
there.
Yep, I'll do it. I know you're going to take me
Oh,
away to
yeah.
Ohio, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
And I've always been that way about my church family, though. Even though, like, the church that I got baptized at was the one the congregation I started attending with my best friend in Detroit. I didn't stay at that congregation, but it was they were still part family to me. I knew all those folks, and I grew up a lot around them. And so that's just the way I have felt about the church. That's my family.
yeah, it's a way. I mean, if you think about it, like it's a way of I mean, and here I'm not even being a theologian. I'm just like almost a sociologist. It's a way of spreading burdens around, right? So sometimes, as a brother, or sometimes I can't. Often I don't see my sister, so I can't always be the older brother. But I can do that for somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And she can receive that, and or I, at some point the boys will leave, and I won't be playing the same role, but I could play a kind of mentor role for somebody else. It's it's a way of building social relations in which you can have gaps and find a way to fill those gaps somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And that was the thing I was pressing that guy on, because you're assuming you want to have these isolated families that sort of collect together like grapes, but they don't really bump into each other. And I'm like, but families are like these messed up things generally, pretty much always. They're at least a little messed up. Everybody's got gaps, and you can't rely on your family to fill all of them. You need to go to church and find somebody who can help you.
Find some more family, yeah.
So.
And you can find those gaps in 15 with the lost son.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
And I hope.
How dare you?
I hope we'll get to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so. But I take the hint, Joe, on that.
No, we're bleeding
next
right
year. It's
into a
next year.
perfect
That's right.
example of here's a story that Jesus told.
Yeah.
One brother's rejoicing and happy he's back home, and the other brother is
Sour grapes.
angry that he's back home.
Yeah.
And the way dad's treating him.
Yeah.
This guy's not running around with the the scum of the earth, and you're killing a fatty calf for him?
Yeah, that is a more recognizable family.
Yeah,
Mhm. That's the
Yeah.
very, very human family.
Yeah, yes, that's right. That's one
Yes.
we can all say like, I know this guy, I know that guy. I wish I
One of
knew
those in my family.
wish I knew the dad, but okay.
Yeah.
So
except the father figure.
yeah, the father figure is hard to find. But Joe, would you read for us the next section, 34? Let's do
35.
Actually, would you read 34 through 15 too?
Okay, honey, got this. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It's thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathered around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them.
Okay, so I wanted you to read those together, partly because I didn't just want you to read two verses, but also partly because they, this is one place where the chapter break can sort of mess us up on the continuity. So sometimes that passage about salt is read in isolation, and it's like, don't hang out with the the dirty people, or you'll lose your saltiness. But that's not what he's been talking about, right? So it's more about you have made a commitment. Keep to your commitment. Remain what you are in that commitment. That's how it fits with what came before.
Oh, okay.
What comes after shows pretty clearly that he's not talking about not hanging out with the dirty people, since that's what he's doing, right? But it's about it's sustaining that commitment. So you are supposed to be salt. You're supposed to be this preservative thing, and salt. Like, this is hard for us because the salt that we have now is really pure, and theirs was not. So ours is just like straight sodium chloride. Theirs was mixed with other stuff, which meant it could go bad in ways that ours can't. Right? So it had like a shelf life, and our salt, I don't think it does at all. I mean, if conditions attain, then it'll just sit forever, right? But theirs wasn't that way. So he's saying, keep fast to that commitment, basically. And then the next little part, the Pharisees wagging their fingers. They're bothered about him welcoming sinners and eating with them. We've talked a little bit about table fellowship. Yeah. With Zacchaeus and that, this presumes a kind of social equality. If you sit with people and you eat with people and mean something, they're fit for your company and they're like you. And keep in mind too that they do sort of, they would do family style kind of thing. No forks and no knives, and just dip the bread in the stuff and that sort of thing.
That's why I do my milk that way.
Right. Yes, I know that.
Yeah, so it's more intimate, is what I'm saying, when they eat together. So when Jesus is eating with like prostitutes and stuff, you can think about, we've talked a little bit about social pollution, views about that. If somebody is engaged in this sort of activity, they're polluted. And then if they touch you or around you, you're polluted.
He really turned the road upside down.
Yeah.
He did.
So he's putting his hand in the bowl with the prostitute.
Do you know where those hands have been?
Yeah, I mean, but
Yeah.
that's exactly
That's
the
true. That is true.
Pharisees are saying, yeah.
that's
true.
the
That's true.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the clear subtext here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so that's it's a very sort of like tangible problem that they're pointing to. He's putting the bowl in there with, and he's like touching them on accident, and they're sinners and they do bad things, and he eats with them and treats them like equals. So now he's polluted. That's what they're saying. That's
Yeah.
their concern.
Brings him down, not them up.
Right. Yeah, that's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And they were outside of the cup people too,
Yeah. Yeah.
as this illustrate, inside you're full of dead men's bones.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and so Jesus has just gone to a dinner party where he's told the host that he invited the wrong people, and he's over at the Pharisees' house. Meanwhile, he's eating with prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors, and so that's their concern. Right? And you can see social pollution is just it's
Yeah,
the
that's what they're looking at, but they're not seeing what his goal is. His goal was here on
They
earth.
were full of themselves.
They had no idea.
yeah. Well, he just looks like you or me, right?
Yeah.
So
They invited him because they knew that he was preaching and doing miracles, correct?
well, okay, that's interesting. It's kind of hard to know where he is when he's saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking if they heard him speak, then wouldn't they? Well, maybe this is ridiculous to say. Maybe they would understand more, but obviously they didn't.
No,
So
they didn't.
Yeah, yeah. The people get what's on there. What you think about what we can know? There's always this like horizon. You think about it like that. You've got your horizon right now, right? What you can see.
Yeah.
Not very big. We're in a
Right.
small room.
Yeah.
Fine for an office, not for, let's say, bird watching. But if something lies outside that horizon, like it could happen, and you just would never know, right?
Or something challenges your known horizon.
So
You
that's
don't want to hear it.
that's where we're going
And
with the
that's
metaphor, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so if someone silently is doing something in that room, none of us would know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's like for them. Like it's possible for them to see it, but their horizon is too small. They would have to have an expansion of the horizon in order to get what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
But he lies outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to think of it like that.
And yet they invited him to this dinner.
Yeah. Well, so you pose an interesting question though, and I want to kind of follow it up just a little bit more. What is it that expands that horizon? What is it that makes us able to know things like this?
I think there has to be some personal connection. You can hear somebody talk about something, but unless it touches you in a personal way, you won't go beyond hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would that be then us, studying the word?
It could be. I mean, it could happen like that.
Okay. It doesn't
You know,
happen.
yeah. I'm thinking of a big word, but I'll just give it to you. It's conversion, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so a genuine religious conversion. I mean, there are different kinds of conversion. You could think of, when you move into adulthood, when you stop measuring everything in its relationship to yourself, to what you want. That's a kind of conversion, right? You're getting over yourself.
Yeah.
That's like a moral conversion. A religion, and that's an expansion of horizons, isn't it? I mean, if it doesn't happen by the time you have your first child,
It will then.
Right.
your child will convert you. Okay, but that yeah. So I mean, I remember this when we had Ezra. You just see the world differently. Things are open to you. You have insights you couldn't have had before. You understand things you couldn't have understood before. You know things you couldn't know before.
You just know it.
Yeah.
It just comes to you. It's like pulling up the shade on the window.
Yeah, I remember we were taking Ezra around because he was born in the summer, in the evening to get him to take his like last nap, and there were just all these fireflies on a hillside, and I was just struck with the wonder of creation,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Because right after you have a little baby, you're just like everything is just a gift,
Mm-hmm.
you know. It's this beautiful gift,
Sure.
which is absolutely true, and it's not something you can see all the time.
Mhm.
So that's a kind of
Yeah,
conversion.
and the gift itself keeps on giving.
That's right. Yeah. But but the there's a when we think of religious conversion, it's like God floods our heart with love. It's at Romans 5:5, right? The Holy Spirit comes into our hearts and we're flooded with love, right?
Mhm.
That's an expansion of horizons, and the Pharisees don't have that.
They're not open to it.
Yeah, they're not open to it. Presumably, God could help them become open to it. God is trying to help them.
I was gonna say at least it's that, but they're
He's
still
trying.
so
Yeah.
stuck in what
They're
in
stuck
their
in their
own
own ways.
yeah.
Their
Yeah.
own way. Yeah.
So it's just like God is right there talking to them. God is his hand in the bowl with the prostitutes,
Right. Yeah.
and they're
And
saying,
they,
"How dare he?"
And they don't
Get your
see it.
hand out
They're
there.
like this.
Yeah.
you know.
Doesn't he know about holiness? Like that's
Oh, yeah.
right. That's the
We're so much holier than he is.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
so they just can't see it, right? It's not. It's right there in front of them. I mean, that's a huge question throughout the gospel, right? It's how can they be blind?
Well, there's a danger, I think, in becoming so committed to keeping a set of rules that there isn't really room for love.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's no relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a saying in the I remember well there was a saying when I was a Catholic. This came up a few times, but law comes into place whenever love has failed. They're talking about human relationships, but
Mhm.
you bring the hammer down. You impose sanctions whenever love is broken down somewhere, right? Which is kind of a wise saying. But love has failed here. Okay. So then it just does become about imposing sanctions on people for breaking rules.
And no grace and mercy.
Yeah, I mean the question they should be asking is like, why are we a society in which there are so many prostitutes? Why are we a society in which people feel so disconnected from the community that they're willing to be tax collectors? Why are you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be? Aren't we doing something?
Somebody coming in.
Happy. Lewis.
Oh,
That's Adam
Yeah.
Lewis.
Oh,
oh, okay, good.
I
okay.
did some work on it.
They could be asking themselves questions like that. Like, if we love these people, what would they be in this position? Maybe not. Maybe that's our fault.
But
Hey.
no, they're not asking those kind of questions. It's
Right.
more like,
It's their fault.
We are so high above
Yeah.
these people. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're better than them.
Right. And you
so
turn.
we would not want to spend time with them. So I don't know why he's
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. Then you can turn somebody else into a sign of your superiority, right? Which is a hard thing to resist. But it's wrong. Okay. I'm going to read the parable,
Oh.
and we might we probably won't finish talking about it, but it's just worth reading, and we can let it sit on our minds.
We do the same sort of thing today, and a lot of virtue signaling that people do.
A lot of what?
What?
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm better than you because, I have a certain sign in front of my house. It's a sign that I'm more righteous or I'm more correct in this world than you are.
Yeah, people do that with people find many ways to do this. Yeah. But what are you gonna say? Were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Jesus knew what he was saying when he said, "Do your good deeds. Don't let your right hand know what your left is doing." Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me read this. So he told them, I'll read all three parables. Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness to go after the one that is lost until he finds it? Ezra and Isaiah played this the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was
Hey, Bob.
it was very cute. Hi, Lewis.
Hey, Louis.
How are you doing?
Fine.
Good. Do you want to sit?
Come on in.
Fine.
How you doing, young lady?
I'm doing fine.
Okay. All right. Let me start it.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
3
15:3.
parables about
I ain't got my
lost
glasses. I ain't
things.
got my
Okay.
glasses.
Just listen and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When one of you having 100 sheep and losing one of them, which one of you having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders and rejoices. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance.
Amen.
Or what woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." Just so I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then Jesus said, There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands." So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far away, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his slaves, "Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound." Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, "Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him." Then the father said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. Okay, well, we'll kind of unpack that a little bit more next time. The only thing I want to point out, they have this little exchange that's a little bit like God and Moses in Exodus when the people sin, and God says, "Your people, which you brought here, came to Mount Sinai and messed everything up, and now I'm going to smite them." And Moses says, "No, they're your people. You brought them. Please don't smite them. The Egyptians will think poorly of you." But they have this kind of exchange. It's a little bit different here. But the brother says, "Your son," and the father reminds him, "It's your brother too." And so if you think, what is Jesus saying to the Pharisees about these sinners and tax collectors? It's not just about me. It's about they're your brothers and sisters too. Like they're people. Like you should also be happy they're coming back. Like they're people you should care about. Okay, so we'll get more into that next time. But we'll have to kind of stop there.
Okay, the one verse that always gets me every time I read this or hear it read is verse 29. He said to his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you, and I've never disobeyed you. You never gave me a young goat." Right there. "Excuse me, son, did you ever ask me for a goat? I've got lots of goats. Anything I've got is yours. Did you ever ask for one?"
Yeah.
And that's all you had to do.
But he didn't have to ask.
They didn't have to ask.
So
It
he-
was there.
So it says that he divided the property between them, which means he gave the inheritance to the older son too.
Yeah.
So when he says all that is mine is yours, he means it literally.
That,
Yeah.
yes,
It's like it is actually yours now, just like it was his.
Yeah, but like I said,
Yeah.
in that conversation, that's the one verse that bothers me because he says that to his father, and I'm like,
Yeah.
did you ever say, "Dad, can I have a party? Can I do this or that?" No, you're just out slaving and complaining.
Right.
I believe the moral of the story is that the son come home
Yeah.
and the father,
He's-
he was happy. It's just like when we stray from the father and come back.
he's happy.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well,
Absolutely.
but your brothers and sisters should be happy for you too.
Yeah.
In this point, though, remember, if the father, as Matt said, divided everything between the two,
Sure.
the son didn't have to ask for a calf because it was his.
Right.
He should.
He
But,
didn't say
but
he
he
never
didn't
gave
even
me
look
one.
at it
We
that
come
way.
back
Right.
next week, guys.
The
He
brother
didn't look
should,
at it.
the older
Yeah.
brother shouldn't have had a complaint. He should have been
Yeah.
happy too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to
That's okay.
we'll have to continue this next time. If you
Yes.
want to,
Yeah.
if you want to see where this goes, you have to come back for the
Alright.
next.
There's the tease. There's the tease.
Okay.
That's right.
Snow
Yeah.
next week.
Let's go.
Is that Lewis' voice?
Yes.
Lewis's
Ah.
voice.
Yeah.
Hi, Lewis. Love and hugs from Janine and Darwood.
How y'all doing? What's up?
We're doing okay.
Good.
They actually can't see you because my camera.
Janine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're
I-
waving to
Just
you.
so that y'all could see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and pray
My
and.
sister is home from the hospital in Florida.
Oh, I'm glad to hear
Oh,
that.
good.
Okay.
She was released today.
Good.
How's she feeling? Okay.
Good.
She's back. Okay. Okay.
She's home. That's a
Okay.
good thing.
Okay. Lord, we thank you for all the good things you've given to us. We thank you for your mercy, that you don't look at us as polluting to you, but rather that you look at us as your children come home. We thank you for your mercy and your love for us, and help us to look on others in the same way, to be glad when our brothers and sisters come home, to be glad even when they've just when they're just on their way out from the foreign country, that we shouldn't necessarily have to wait until they're on the property to be home or to be glad. That any step toward it is a good thing. help us to love one another and to serve our community and help our church as we move into the future. We pray these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Janine and Dorwood, it was good to see you guys. I'm glad that your computer decided to cooperate eventually.
Okay.
Eventually, it's so aggravating when that happens, but oh
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it's part of computer life.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Well, are y'all doing okay?
We're hanging in. Yep, we're hanging in.
Okay.
So, love to be sure and tell your family hello for us.
I will.
Tell Allison. Wish I could see the boys. It's hard for me to imagine, them playing together, playing hide and seek. I mean, it's that the little one Isaiah is old enough to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds so cute.
Yeah, he is. He does lots of things now. Yeah. He's an active guy.
Well, that's fabulous. That's a thank you, God. Something.
Absolutely.
That's the case.
Yeah.
Janine,
What
I love to see about Isaiah on Sundays, Isaiah is the congregational greeter.
Yeah.
Oh,
He likes to come by. He
Yes.
comes by and he likes to speak to everybody.
how
And
sweet.
it is just wonderful.
Oh, how old is he? How old is he now? 2.5?
Just 2. You just turned 2.
Just turned 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. This month was his birthday.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah,
His
he's
little personality come out.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is like a little sunbeam for sure.
Um,
Well, it's
that's wonderful.
yeah. Well, it's good to see you guys, and I hope you all have a good week.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. All right.
Now, are you meeting on Wednesday night next week, even though it's Christmas week?
Oh no,
Okay.
no. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, because we sort of rush through dinner, which means we get sort of a late start up here anyway. And so if you're not going to meet, it would be good to know ahead.
Yeah. Yes. We will not. I guess we'll agree not to meet next time for Christmas
Okay,
sake.
and what about the next week, the New Year's week?
What do y'all think?
To be decided, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it don't matter to me.
Okay.
'Cause I'll be around.
Yeah, we can. So we'll take this week off and meet in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Alrighty.
And we have to finish John.
Yeah, the book of John
Yeah.
that Joe's reading.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see y'all later. Okay.
Take care. We
Thank
love you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Love everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.